All right, Matt, I know it took us a little while to connect. We had met through Eric Cabral. I thank him very much. It was great to spend the day with you down in Trenton at On Air Brand Studio. You're right next to him, right? In an office
I
right
am.
next to him. Are you there? Is he there today?
I don't know. I'm not there now.
Oh, you're not there now. Okay.
He and I occupy. We're neighbors in an office building. In that we're like literally spitting distance from each other.
Right. That you and your partners own, right? Don't you own that
Yeah,
building?
I own that building. My wife and I own that building. He's my
Oh,
partner, right?
okay.
So
Yeah,
my
that
wife and I
counts.
own that building for now. We're going to be selling it soon, but my wife and I do own that property.
Okay, good.
And that, but we've really taken our focus in real estate away from owning office buildings, and we're more focused on multifamily now. So
Okay,
it just
good.
makes
Well, we'll
sense
talk about
to.
why you're making that transition and stuff. But I told you
Sure.
before, maybe we go back to, where you grew up, what your education was,
Yeah, man.
background, why you got into real estate and how you got into that type of thing.
Yeah. Sure. No problem. Thank you. So I'm 46 years old. I grew up, born in 75. And so
I
I
got you
grew
by
up in
10 years, by the way.
That's all good. That's all
Yeah.
good. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. Just did the whole thing in Baltimore. Baltimore has an
Camden
interesting.
Yards.
What's that?
Camden
Camden
Yards.
Yards.
Yeah.
But I grew up going to Memorial Stadium
Yeah, there was
before
no
that.
Camden Yard when we were
There was
young. Yeah.
I remember when they built Camden Yards, but when
Yeah.
I was a kid, we went to Memorial Stadium, which was like in the middle of just in the middle of the
Yeah, it
city.
wasn't in the Inner Harbor like it is now. Right?
No,
Yeah.
no. That
That's a
was
great
before
place, by
cities.
the way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's before cities realized, hey, we should put these ballparks where people want to go,
Right.
instead of where there's cheap land,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's I grew up, following the Orioles and everything like that too. And again, Memorial Stadium where I grew up is where the Colts and the Orioles played. They
Got
both
it.
played in the same box.
Well,
So
the
it's just,
M&T Bank Stadium is a different stadium. The football
of
stadium,
course.
that's a whole nother stadium.
Oh yeah, with
Got
that, but
it.
again, that's right there.
Yeah.
That they like share parking with Camden Yards.
Oh, they're right there next to each other.
Yeah. But that's, urban development's changed a lot over the years, right? So you can tell these ballparks that were built in the last 15 years because they put them in areas where, like, those two ballparks, you could walk out the door and be downtown in the Inner Harbor.
Yeah, so people want to stay and shop and spend money. I mean, makes
hang
sense.
out. You got a
Yeah,
hotel, you got this, you got that. They can get into your pocket 3 ways from Tuesday, when you go to that ballpark. And there's a light rail stop that's right in front of them and everything like that. But back in the day, we look at other cities that have older stadiums. The stadiums are kind of like, well, this area used to be hip 50 years ago, like Wrigley Field.
The stadiums in New York, you don't want to be there at night. Get the hell out of there. Even now,
no, man.
The new stadiums. It's not good.
Yeah. But again, Baltimore used to have a stadium in the center of the city in a rough neighborhood. But like I said before, it's probably because they thought that would rejuvenate that neighborhood by building a ballpark there. And that, but again, what people did was but then they surrounded the ballpark.
The Inner Harbor wasn't what it is now, right?
No,
it was a bad place.
No,
right?
No. When I grew up, the Inner Harbor was a mess. I mean, and my dad was in construction back then, and his company was one of the first ones to get contracted to start doing some of the buildings. His company built the Harbor Plaza.
Oh, so he did some of that stuff, huh?
Yeah. But he wasn't. Again, he was like a draftsman for a steel company. So don't get me wrong, I'm not like third generation real estate guy or whatever. Right. My dad was a draftsman for a steel construction company.
Okay.
And so
which is basically like an in-house architect.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So they could do the drawings themselves. And so he would draw out bridges and buildings and that cool stuff and everything like that. So his company that he worked for did a lot of the redevelopment of the downtown, contracted by developers, and a lot of money came from the city and stuff like that. I remember Donald Schaefer, the mayor of Baltimore, like as a promo for Baltimore, swam in the Inner Harbor. Like he put on the whole swimsuit, like the full, like this was back in the day, and he was an older dude back then. Yeah. So he put on the one-piece men's, remember like the one-piece men's swimsuit they would wear with like
going into
with like the shorts built. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. He probably did it because was worried about getting toxic waste on him or whatever.
You wouldn't do that in the Hudson River, that's for sure.
No, right?
Yeah. No, they have a race, like it's an Ironman or whatever. And I think it was just before COVID when they did it, they canceled the swim part of it because of the water readings. Like they have to do a test, and if it's too toxic, no swimming. And they
I had a buddy that did that. I had a buddy
Remember?
that did that race you're talking
In
about. And he
in
said
the
while he was
Hudson?
doing it, it was disgusting. He said you would
Disgusting.
swim in the Hudson and there would be just dead fish floating
Ugh.
past you and stuff like that while
Who would wanna
you're.
do that? Oh,
Ugh.
plenty of places to swim in the world. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
It's a whole
So
nother
Donald Schaefer
podcast.
did that, and that was like a promo to promote downtown Baltimore. So I grew up there, and I was one of these. Baltimore has an interesting school system that every area should have, and it's this wacky thing called choice. About where you want to send your kids to school. So it's not like a charter program
It's like
or whatever.
a voucher program, right, or something like that. You'd get
And it's called a magnet program.
magnet,
So
right? We have
if
magnet
you-
schools up by us too, but it's not. It's like it's the magnet schools up here are almost like a high school that you have to apply to and get in. Each county
Yeah, yeah.
sends a certain amount of
You
kids.
sit
It's
up
a little
here.
different.
Are you in Jersey or
In Jersey, yeah,
Okay.
up
So
North Jersey, yeah.
the Baltimore school system was run by county. Baltimore Maryland as a state is run by county. There's nothing below the county. And New Jersey
Oh,
can't seem to get its head around that, where like Baltimore City is its own county. Then there's Baltimore County that sits around that, and there is Towson, there is Bel Air, those little regions of Baltimore City, but almost all the governance comes from the county, right? And the
Still
school
today?
systems still today. And
because
all
my
the
daughter
school
goes to
systems.
University of Maryland College Park, so College Park's not really a city. They get all their resources from the county.
Yes,
That would
yes.
solve a lot of problems in New Jersey. It'd piss a lot of
It
people off.
would, because you don't have all this overhead and fiefdoms and
You
stuff
don't
like
need
that.
an
And that's how New Jersey has
superintendent
real
for
estate
every
tax
friggin'
problem.
little school system in the entire state. It's stupid.
With each
Police and
superintendent
fires.
making 250 grand a year.
Right.
Right.
It's a lot of money. You'd say billions.
And you've got, mayors and town councils and administrative assistants and stuff like that.
Right.
All these staff and people that have to run each of these little fiefdoms.
That's
So
the
when I
problem.
moved to New Jersey, I was like, what the hell
What
is
the
this?
hell? Yeah.
Like, why do you need all this? So
Yeah.
Maryland is a county run state, right? So they also run the schools by county as well. So you could go to your district school that you wanted to go to, and I'll get to why that was a bad thing as well. But like, if your kid was smart enough and could place in, they could go to a magnet school. And this is only for high school. They've since expanded this
program
program.
to apply.
Right. They've
Just
since
like
expanded this to
FIS.
middle school too. So now my nephew, who grew up in Baltimore, he now went to a magnet middle school, and his mom, God bless her, drove him a half an hour one way each day to school, but that's because he got to go to school for smart kids, right? God bless.
And they're like special academies like they have up here. They have one for health and sciences, one for performing
Ding, ding,
arts.
ding.
One, yeah.
So my sister went for one for liberal arts, right? That's where she went. I went to one for math and science, for engineering and math and science. There was one that was a public all girls school, right across the street from where I went to school. There was a school called Baltimore School for the Arts, right?
Huh?
Okay. From that school, a bunch of people you've heard of have graduated that are famous singers and artists and stuff like that from Baltimore School for the Arts, a public art school, right?
Yeah.
Singing, painting, acting, all those things, right? I think Jay-Z and Jada Pinkett Smith went there.
But you have to get it.
You got to, not only do you have to test in, you have to audition to go to high school.
Right. The same, the performing arts up here, you have to audition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
But then they had a VOTEC school,
Okay,
right?
Right.
So you want to go VOTEC?
Yeah.
More kids should be doing VOTEC. Not everybody
ought to
be going
all
to
the
college.
vocations are dying. Plumbers,
that's
electricians, they're all going to be gone.
You and I could go there. That's why you can't get a
money.
contractor.
It's a lot of money to
That's
be made. If you like working with your hands, you can have a good
every
living.
contractor I know that owns every guy that I know that owns like a reasonable size, like plumbing, HVAC, framing company, whatever, does very, very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a ton of money in the trades, and it's just not broadcast that the trades are a place that people should go because it's not sexy. You could be working in the trades.
No, they think of vocational school as like the Project 79 kids. They send them over there and they're troubled.
Oh,
kids.
you can't do anything else.
Right.
So let's just teach you how to work with your hands, you know?
It's
It's like, well, a lot of money working with your hands. So there was all those things. And I went to the engineering school because people are like, oh, you're good at math and science, so you should be an engineer. Right. So I did. And I loved it because it was 2 math classes a day, 2 science classes a day. I was taking thermodynamics in high school. It was awesome. But the problem is that nobody really opened up what possibilities there were for kids that were good at math and science aside from engineering. So I went to an engineering college thinking that that's what I wanted to do, not realizing I really didn't like it, but I got a degree in engineering.
Okay. That's a good
I was smart
background.
enough. Yeah, I figured it out. I went to Virginia Tech,
Sure.
and got my degree in engineering, but
Maryland just played them in the Pinstripe Bowl.
didn't do too well for
Beat
Virginia
their
Tech.
ass.
I know, beat the
Killed
crap
you
out of them.
guys. We did.
Well, Maryland had a lot of catching up to do from all the beat down that Virginia Tech had given them, which I had been to a few games from Maryland and Virginia Tech.
I didn't know it was going to be a beatdown. I thought we'd lose, but
Virginia Tech's on the limp, man. I mean,
right
they've been not a great football team for years. Ever since Beamer retired, and they just did not get a good replacement for him with this Justin Fuente guy that replaced him. They've not been the program.
They're almost
that they were
in Tennessee, right? They're down close to. Isn't their school down close
to
Tennessee, right?
Yeah,
way
so
out.
they're all the way. Virginia's a big ass state.
Yeah,
man.
it goes.
So they are all the way down in southwestern Virginia, like almost to North Carolina, like on the kind of where Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia come together. They're right there. It's south of Roanoke. Have you ever heard of Roanoke? They're down there.
Sure.
So, yeah, so that's where Virginia Tech is. I had a ball, party my ass off and, and all that. Developed a lot of great social skills, which I still use today and everything like that. But I, got my degree in engineering, but didn't really want it. Engineering wasn't in my heart. And so I found a job when I graduated from Virginia Tech in sales, that allowed me to sell to engineers. And so I loved it. It was a good sales job that I had.
Good experience.
It was as good of a job as I could get, with that degree. It's still a job, but I didn't like it too much because I was in like dirty factories every day and industrial machinery, air compressors.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you got to go in the factories, right? I mean,
yeah,
there you go.
Big loud objects. Compressed air is the fourth utility in manufacturing. They're using water, natural gas, and electricity to build stuff, and then compressors
air all over the place. Yeah.
Oh, it's such a common and such a versatile utility to use in making stuff. That's the only cool thing about it, Mitch, is that I got to see how a lot of cool things are made. I'll tell you a cool story. You know how canned soup's made?
Canned soup,
right?
They put the soup in the can and they seal it up. I don't know.
Right. Here's what they do, right? They put the raw stuff in the can.
Right.
Okay. The raw vegetables, the raw meat, the raw everything,
or whatever.
The water, the whatever it is that they're going to cook. They put it in the can. You would think that there's this big, enormous cauldron of soup, right?
Yeah. You fill it up.
That like grandma's stirring up this like 300 gallons of soup for all the cans. Right. No, they don't do that. They take all the raw veg and raw meat and raw everything, put it in the can, and then they cook it in the can.
Really?
Right? Yes. Two things. It eliminates all the germs, and all the potential stuff.
Contamination.
All the contaminant, no bacteria is living through that cooking process because they cook the crap out of it. They're like, 400 or 500 degrees in the can, right? It also seals the can as well when they do that. And they can also control the amount of like the volume and everything like that goes into it. Additionally, can you imagine the process of taking like 300-degree soup and pouring it into little cans with humans walking around?
Machine, right? That the can would go under, fill it up. And that's how I imagined it.
So what they did was they take cold soup and put it in these enormous steamers.
Right.
And they fill it up full of steam, let it steam. Because again, steam is another product that you can produce pretty easily in a factory. So they'd steam them and then they'd vent the whole thing out with compressed air. Dude, whoosh, to clean it out. And then
they label it.
Right. And then you've got a ready to eat little can of thing that, think about it. When you get a can of soup, it's already cooked, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for a can of tuna, right? Can of tuna, they're going to put the raw tuna in there. Then they're going to cook it, because when tuna fish, and you get a can of tuna fish,
cooked. It's just not, it's cooked. Just plain. Right.
That's right. It's right. It's already cooked. And it's not because they roasted this enormous tuna and then carved them up just right. They just took a chunk of raw fish and threw it in the can, sealed it, and then cooked it,
Well, that
blew my mind.
It looks like it's a piece of tuna as opposed to.
Yes.
Be able to
So
shop there.
I got to see all kinds of cool stuff like that. That's the one blessing that I got from that industry,
On the
from
manufacturing
being
side,
in
like you saw
compressed
all
air,
this
is I got to
manufacturing stuff.
see, you name it, I got to
Yeah.
see it made.
Cool.
Trash bags, shaving cream cans, you know, like pens and pencils, dog food. That's disgusting. Don't ever go to a dog food plant.
I know. I don't even want to know. And we
You
buy
don't.
pretty
You
good
don't
dog
want to
food
know.
for our dogs. Like
You know,
when I
and
was
you don't
young, we
want
used
to
to
know.
give our dog Alpo. And now we give him, I don't know, Merrick or something, but it can't be. I don't even want to know.
I've been into an
Your
Alpo
dogs,
plant. You don't
it's
want to
not
do it.
good.
You don't want to,
Not-
but you know what's in that food and you don't want to know.
Now, one of my favorite shows is that show called How They Made This. How's
Yeah.
that made or something like that? And they
Yeah, yeah.
show, here's this piece of metal, and at the end, it's a washing machine or whatever.
Yeah.
They show the whole process. I think
That's
cool.
very cool.
Yeah.
Those shows are cool. Food production. If you don't want to eat a food ever again, just walk into whatever plant they make it in and you'll never want to eat it, including vegetables.
Yeah.
Like I've been into a vegetable plant and you're like, so you're just going to pick that up off the ground and throw it right back on the conveyor belt, huh? Like,
right.
I mean,
Well, like they, yeah. There's some videos out there about like food production and the animal side of it. And you don't want to eat animals after that.
no, not just that, but
Gross.
I've been into things that you're supposed to eat, like veggies and that kind of thing. I've seen how that's made, and you're like, oh wow,
Well,
like
that's
how it's
not
done.
clean.
Just you know what it is, right? It's not clean and that, but like the mass production of things just causes it takes the humanization out of it a little bit when you see like, oh, I need to make 3,000 tons a year of broccoli, and so this is how we're going to have to do that to industrialize this food.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't have people on the line cutting the broccoli by hand.
Oh yeah.
You can, but it's expensive and
hard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
machineries. But
yeah.
we're getting off the
Anyway,
track.
so that was my
in
life.
Baltimore. You graduated as an engineer.
Yep.
Went into sales, and then you're like, I can't do this for the rest of my life, right?
Well, so let's see, how did this go down? Okay, I lived in North Carolina. I'll go personal on you a little bit further, Mitch. I am adopted, and my parents had told me since I was a little baby that I was adopted, and they're like, I don't remember them telling me. I remember being told, like, I remember knowing this my entire life, and it wasn't like a thing, and that, so it was just a part of me. It wasn't something that I felt embarrassed about or that dealt with a lot of the healing and rejection issues that I have other friends that were adopted and were told later in life.
16 years old, they find out they're adopted.
Oh yeah. I had one cousin that was 14 years old. Parents told him he was adopted at 14 years old, and he, has not recovered from that yet. So, but anyway, the bottom line of it is I was always cool with it. And so when I turned 18, I began the journey of finding my birth mother and my birth father. So my birth father, they found him, he denied contact and that. So good enough. He had gone off and made his own family, and, and he kind of had this BS thing that he said he could,
right?
He couldn't confirm nor deny that he was my father or whatever. So they found my birth mother, and she accepted contact. And so back and forth, letters, and then eventually a phone call. I lived in North Carolina. She lived in New Jersey. Okay. And so the company I was with, I was working for Ingersoll Rand. They had an office open in Philly. And so I was like, oh man, I would love to be closer to my birth mother who lives in South Jersey. So I took the transfer to Philly. My parents lived in Baltimore they still lived in Baltimore. And so that brought me closer than the 8 hours it was from North Carolina, and closer to her, to my birth mother. This is a win-win. So I got to be closer to, somebody I wanted to know somebody I wanted to know more. And also my family. Right. So moved up there, got to know Philly. Philly's a funky town, man. I mean, it's one of those towns where a lot of towns are transient towns, where like you go to Charlotte and everybody's not from there,
Transplants.
Philly, everybody's from
South
there.
Florida. Right.
Right. South Florida. Yeah. South Florida. A lot of your transient cities like Texas, whatever, that have enormous population growth. When you meet people, let's say, oh, I'm from Oklahoma, whatever. Everybody's out to try and meet people, whatever. Philly's funky, man. Like in Philly, everybody's like, oh, I went to school here, and everybody still hangs out with people they went to high school with in Philly and stuff like that. So it was a little harder to meet people moving to Philly, but I kind of made my way. And
you're not going to tell me you're an Eagles fan now, are you?
I just couldn't stand it anymore.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
The
Eagles fans will talk you out of being an Eagles fan.
You should be a Ravens fan, but don't be an Eagles fan.
Yeah, I followed Virginia. I got into Virginia Tech football. That was it.
Yeah.
And I still
I like
follow
college
them
football. Yeah.
loosely and stuff like that. But I root for myself, man. I don't really root for sports. I just like I've learned after being my heart broke, after I have watched get my heart broke by the Eagles and by the Virginia Tech Hokies a
Hey,
bunch of
listen, I'm a
times.
Giants fan. It's painful these days. So
I bet, but you probably learn what I did. I would think over time, in that like there are things in life I can control, and there's things in life that I
right.
can't.
Yeah.
Right. Why am I going to put emotion behind things I can't control? Like I can't control whether the freaking Eagles are going to win the game or not,
Oh, you know, some of these guys, Jets, Eagles, Giants, it's their life.
and they get disappointed every week,
I know.
you know?
I
Right.
agree with you. I'm just joking.
I
But yeah, I
can't
agree
deal
with
with that. I didn't want that. I got
right.
too emotionally invested in the games and stuff like that. And I was like, man,
Yeah.
I don't need this any. I remember tossing and turning one night after Virginia Tech won like one of those Thursday night like kickoff classic football
Yeah.
games.
Yep.
And it was a big game and it was a nail biter down to the wire and they lost. And I remember I couldn't sleep the next night, you know, that night I went to
Right.
bed and I couldn't sleep because I was losing sleep over the Virginia Tech Hokies winning. They're losing. And I had breakfast that morning with, you know, I was sitting down and having breakfast. And I'm like, you know what am I doing?
Right.
Like, why do
I never feel that invested. My wife's a
why do
Florida
I
State
care
fan.
about
She went to
this?
Florida State. She won't sleep for a week when they lose.
Yeah, I'm done with that. So I just because I'm an emotional creature, it's just who I am.
Yeah.
I just get invested in things and that. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just care about things that I can that it matters to care about.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So anyway, moved to Philadelphia, made my network there a bit, but I had to go. I had
Still
to,
with the engineering company.
yeah. So with the engineering company,
Okay.
a buddy of mine from college, from Virginia Tech, his sister lived in Philly.
Okay.
And I made friends with his sister, and we decided we'd do a flag football team through one of the bars back in Manayunk where I used to live. So like, all right, let's do a flag football team. And she invites her buddy that she knew from growing up, which was my wife. So
Nice.
that's how I met my wife,
That's how it
and my
happens.
wife and I started dating from meeting each other playing flag football, right? And she put Rich Dad Poor Dad in my hand. And I was this traveling engineer that, you know, was making a good living, you know, flirting with, and this is like in 2001, 2002, flirting with six figures at like 26 years old. So living a good life, right? Yeah. Good enough. And companies pay you enough to get by, right? They pay you enough to where they pay you just enough to where you won't quit, right?
Right, exactly. Where you can't quit.
Yeah, I was making just enough to where I wouldn't quit. And then sometimes they pay you so much where you can't quit, you know, where it's like golden handcuff, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't there yet, but I was like expendable enough to like, oh, if you want to quit, you can. But I'm like, I'm not going to quit for the amount of, you know, right. So but I knew I wanted a bigger life. I knew there was more in me than this. So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, loved it, blew my mind. She invited me up to her brother-in-law's place up in Easton to play Cash Flow, Kiyosaki's board game.
Played Cash Flow before. Yeah.
Played that. That blew my mind too. And I'm like, this is I just to do. Yeah. It got me tied into like the possibility of living life to build assets and to and really what money was all about, like how money works, you know, and just that whole thing versus like just trading hours for dollars. And I realized I was trading hours for dollars for a good trade. You know, I was getting a good deal on trading hours for dollars, but still doing so. And I just realized I wanted something more. And so when I was with Ingersoll Rand, I had a big commission come in because I sold a bunch of compressed air to Minute Maid orange juice in New Jersey. So we had that sale happen, and the commission was big enough for me back then that I was like, man, this is a lot of money. I'm just going to sit on this. So I put it in my savings account, not knowing what to do with it. Right. Read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and fast forward to my landlord in Manayunk had told me, hey man, listen, you need to move because we're selling this house. And I was like, I didn't want to buy that. I didn't want to buy that house that I was renting. So I talked to the realtor that was selling that house for my landlord. And I said, I want to buy a house because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and I want to be, you know, I want to buy a property and have people rent it out with me. So I bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $150K. My mortgage was $940 a month. And my 2 knucklehead drinking buddies from my house in Manayunk moved in with me to my new house. Yeah. And they paid me rent to live in my new house, but the rent they were paying me was total of $1,000 a month. So my mortgage was $940. They were paying me $1,000. And so now I'm making me, pretty good, almost 6-figure salary with Ingersoll Rand while I have no living expenses. So
Makes sense. Yeah.
pay off all my student loans, pay off all my credit cards. I'm like, this is cool. So got myself out of my bad debt. I'm 27 years old, bad debt free. And I was hooked and so that's the beginning of how I turned my head to real estate. And then there's a long journey of how my wife and I, we're still dating, but we bought rental properties around Philadelphia while we were dating, and then eventually got married. And then she quit. I quit my job, and we lived off of her income and all that while I built my company.
You're both in real estate, right?
We are now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We lived off her income. It was a lot longer journey than we thought. We figured we'd live off her income for like a year or two while I built a business, and the business would eventually just spin off all this money to where she could quit. But she ended up quitting her job in 2013. So 8 years after we got married, she was able to quit when we had our first kid. And then we lived off the business from there.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not saying you shouldn't have your goals to do it as quickly as you can, but it definitely takes longer than you anticipate, because life doesn't happen in a straight line. There's bumps along the road, things you run into, whether it's
People
in the
don't
real
wanna
estate
hear
market
that
or
though,
personally
man.
or life or whatever,
Maybe it's mine and your gray hairs, Mitch, but like the younger generations in the world, and I get now you and I all of a sudden sound like two old guys going like, these damn kids today.
Right,
But
exactly.
but in today's generation, everybody wants success today. They
Right.
want it right now. They want the $1 million right now.
Because
They
everything
want
else is instantaneous.
they
That's
want the $1
why.
million, the jet and the Tesla
Right.
today. I get that, and I know you do. And I wanted that too when I was 20 something or whatever. But what I've learned is that success is a marathon.
Yeah.
And unless you're willing to run the marathon, then you might catch lightning in a bottle and get lucky every here and again, but you're not going to be continually successful unless you're willing to stay in and make changes and stay the course and set goals and strive until you hit the goal and all that. But I just feel like, unfortunately, the generations now just seem to want all of it today.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to accept that they might have to work a little bit to get to
Right.
it.
No, it's no question about it. I mean, look, you need anything, you can go online and get it like that. It wasn't like that growing up. Growing
No.
up, you had to go to the store, you had to buy it. It might not have been there. It was like
Yeah,
real,
yeah.
like in life. Now everything's available, at least by tomorrow.
Yeah.
Prime
Right. If it's not,
delivery.
and if I have to wait more than tomorrow, I am pissed. Like my son, I have an 8-year-old that, like, if we were going to buy a Lego set for him or whatever, I mean, whatever, if we ordered online and it doesn't show up the next day, he doesn't get it. He's like, why?
Right.
Because it's supposed
what
to.
happened. Right.
Yeah. Right. It must have been a problem. I remember like, you had to wait like a week or two to get something back then,
Or you couldn't find it in the stores, and that was
like,
it.
oh, they don't have it. How's
Right.
that possible?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Right.
that's the world in which they live. And you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So when you guys got started, it was multifamily mostly when you started?
Yeah, it was no. We
It
first got started. It was it was small single family and small multi.
Just renting a house out to a family. Or
Renting my single family home out to my two buddies.
Yeah, well, that obviously you're living there too. But I'm saying, what was the first property that you bought that was just rented out? It was a house?
A duplex. We bought it. Liz and I bought a duplex, and this is back in the day.
Top
Mitch.
and bottom?
Yeah. Well, just 2 units. 2 units on one tax parcel.
Got it.
In Chicago, Chicago is the one place in the world they call it a 2-flat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right. But yeah, it's and some people call it, but yeah, anyway, it's 2 units under one one piece of land.
2 renters.
Right? Yeah.
2 tenants.
So we bought that.
Okay.
This is back in the day where you could lay 95 to 100% down in equity when you buy it. Or you lay 5% down, excuse me, or no money down, whatever.
Yeah.
First and second mortgages, stuff like that. So we laid 5% down and bought a duplex that non-owner occupied. And that was our first classroom, man. I mean, we immediately had to evict both tenants because they immediately saw a new sheriff in town. Let's just stop paying our rent.
Yeah.
And it was a mess.
Yeah.
So
but you learned a lot.
Yeah, I did. It got my teeth kicked in, learned a lot, and then fast
Make you
forward to
think
my
twice
life.
about, like, should I keep doing this? Did you ever consider that or no?
Never, it's funny, Mitch. I never had that thought. Never really truly thought about, like, maybe this isn't for me. I don't know why. you know,
Because I hear
and there were
stories from
moments where I
people, they're
probably
like,
shouldn't have
oh,
thought that.
we owned a condo and we rented it out and it was a nightmare. So we're never investing in real estate. And I go, that was your only experience? Like you gave up?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's not enough experience, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we got battered in this business. I
Yeah.
mean, it was like assault and battery what happened to Liz and I in this business. But at the end of the day, um, I don't know why, but we never had that like, are we really cut out for this? Should we quit? Whatever. I don't know why.
That's
Maybe
good.
it's just
That's
because I
good.
I knew that it was our calling to build a
Right.
business and all that. And
Now
because
the
I knew,
first duplex was
Hmm?
in Philly.
Yeah.
So is the laws in Pennsylvania, is it hard to evict people?
Um, Back then it was not. It has changed. This was 2000, like 13, 14. Or no, I'm sorry, this 2003, 2004, 2005. In that, but it has certainly since COVID, it's become darn near impossible.
Well, right, because the
Um,
courts are basically shut
yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Somebody on
But
trial.
back then, and this is like pre-online, pre-internet, where like to evict, you had to go down to the L&I office or down to the courthouse, file the paperwork, whatever, to file evictions. I remember like posting notice in the tenant's door. You had to file a notice in Pennsylvania, you have to file a notice to quit, meaning
Yeah.
like,
New Jersey.
yeah, yeah, like notice to cease, notice to quit kind of things. And then you have to post it on the door, wait 3 days, that kind of thing, wait 5 days, and then you have to prove that you posted notice and then file the eviction. That gets you to court hearing and stuff like that. But I believe that tenant moved out when I posted the notice to quit. She actually called me and said, okay, I'll move, and she did, which was good. So then Liz and I moved. She needed to move to New Jersey for a job when we got married. The job that she had that we were living on the income on. So we were like, okay, fine, guess we're moving to New Jersey.
Right, exactly.
So we moved to New Jersey we found a house in Bordentown.
Okay.
That was within our means, that worked for us at the time, just living on just her salary. So we lived in Bordentown for years. We thought only for a year or two we would live there, but then the crash of '08 happened and took us longer to build a business than we thought, bumped into
Right.
a lot of walls, didn't stay focused, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
So we, made a lot of mistakes, and the crash. So we ended up
Right.
living in Bordentown for a while, a lot longer than we thought we were going to. But because Bordentown is the next town over from Trenton, right? Trenton became where we built our business for a long time. I mean, it's like one of those acres of diamonds kind of things, right?
Yeah.
Like Trenton was right there. So why not get started investing in Trenton? And
Yeah,
so
there's distressed real estate and opportunities there and so forth.
a lot of landlording, the equations made sense. You can buy cheap, rent for a lot, it's enticing, that market is. That's where we started to build our brand for a long time. We planted our flag there. This is where we're going to make our scene. Trenton, New Jersey, Jersey. So
So now what got you into commercial buildings and stuff?
You mean a multifamily?
No, don't you have commercial buildings now and you're saying, no, we're going back to more multifamily?
Yeah, I bought an office building. That was an interesting story. We own, that's where I first met you. We own a 10,000 square foot office building that we bought that was vacant at the time, that we bought to like, okay, we're going to buy this because this was back during the Corzine administration when Corzine was governor, and he's Democrat. So he was just, big government and everything like that. Let's just, we're going to take down more office space, and there was a lot of lobbyists coming into town and stuff like that. And so the other landowners in New Jersey around that area, around downtown, my office building's right in the downtown area, right by the
One we met
courthouses, and right.
Okay.
And so we bought it knowing that the state and the county were needed more office space, and they were leasing out space at $18 a square foot per
Okay.
year. So that means that if you got a 10,000 square foot building, 180,000 a year is what they would pay us for that building, right? Annual on a monthly basis, right? So that'd be like 15 grand a month is what you could make for that building.
What are those triple net?
We
Like
found that
the government pays everything. They pay all the
it's triple
utilities
net. They pay the whole shooting
Nice.
match, right? Like meaning
Okay.
like they pay that rent plus your taxes plus your
Right.
insurance on top. It's like lightning in a bottle, you
all
know?
hands off, right?
Oh yeah, man. So we saw that and we're like, hey, game on. I'll take that. I'll do that deal. So we found an office building that was in the path of progress, and the government was expanding further down Broad Street where we were. And so we bought the building for $52 a square foot. So we figured, hey, this is a turnkey as is office building.
Yeah.
State could come in and I get a third of my money back a year in cash flow. Are you kidding me? I'll take it.
Value will
Right.
go through the roof. Right.
Yeah, I'm in, man. And I'll refinance it. And we'd had some successes on small deals, and we decided to stretch and get into that deal. Right. So we did put it under contract and close. And a local school comes in and leases the building from us that was in between schools. Like they were abandoning the school they were in, and they were going to build a larger school for themselves. And they needed a layover place to be while they were building their new facility. So they
like
leased that building from us for 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah, like an intermediary thing. They leased that building from us for 1 year. It's good rent. Everybody was happy. I'm happy. Nowhere near what we wanted. It was like not for profit school rent, right? So not
the government
15,000 a month, like 4,000 a month, right? And I got to pay the taxes. So we get by, and during that time, while they were leasing the building, two things happen. The market crashes. 2008 happens, and Governor Corzine, who is running for re-election, loses to a guy named Chris Christie. Okay, right. So Christie comes in. And he cleans house, man. And the house needed to get clean, let's say, right?
Yeah,
so
no question about it, but it didn't help you.
Yeah, no. So those two things stopped all expansion that was happening on all those office buildings that were leasing up, that Corzine was leasing up left and right, and expanding the administration, expanding ancillary services. Chris Christie says, stop, not doing any of that. Undoing all that, like canceling those contracts, voiding those leases, get out of those things.
Yeah.
That happens. And the carousel stops for all businesses that are growing and everything like that. And we're left holding the bag in a lot of ways. I got this office building, the school leases for 1 year, they move out. And so now I got a vacant office building. Right. Yeah. So what we decided, we pivoted and we put it on the market and you couldn't sell, because you couldn't sell anything back then. So I couldn't just dump it and take what I could get. We carved it up into a small business center. So we cut up the offices, we put a key fob system on the front door, and we started leasing individual offices to individual businesses. And a lot of these individual businesses were owned by people that had just gotten laid off, that just took exits from from company A to move to company B, or whatever, law firms, whatever, that had laid a lot of their staff off. So these lawyers needed a place to hang a shingle. So we leased, and the courthouses were a block away. So we turned the building into a small business center, bottom line. And it was a labor of love. It took a while to get it leased up, years, and to crawl out of the hole of the market crash. But we got there.
Yeah, you got to get traction over time. But
now but that building kicked our butt.
Are you in contract to sell it, or are you just looking to sell it?
No, I'm under contract to sell it.
Under contract?
Yeah, so the other thing that happened, Mitch, is we kept going on what I knew we were good at, which was residential real estate. And we got really good at that. And we built a team around it. And that office building was one of those things that I thought was going to go one way. We ended up just to save it and not lose it.
That wave, it's time to head to shore, right?
Yeah. So you had to do what you got to do to keep it going, to get rents coming in, right? So we ended up leasing it up, pretty much doing like small business center kind of look and feel on it. But we were really making a brand for ourselves as a residential landlording company. And we put one in front of the other and built it up over time, built a residential business up over time there. And that was one of those things. And I ended up hiring staff and everything like that, and building up a residential landlording company. And that was really where our core was. That goes all the way to 2011, 12, where investors start showing up. Like, hey, you guys are doing good with the residential stuff. We want to hear more. We love what you guys are doing. And that's where we started getting into the raising money game of money going into commercial
syndicates, right?
Yeah, partnerships, syndications, those kinds of things. And that's how I ended up forming some of our first syndications, and that's where I got the technology and the stories that I wrote in Raising Private Capital in my book.
Right. Well, everything's an evolution, right? You learn, you grow your business and do things like that. So I assume you're not renting out like single family homes anymore. Now you're in larger buildings and. more
We kept
units, right?
testing the waters and growing into larger and larger circles because I knew that we wanted to make a bigger splash. And I mean, honestly, a single family home gets you $300-400 a month, maybe in cash flow when it's
Right.
leased. A multifamily will get you dollars per unit in cash flow. And we just saw multifamily as more stable,
Right.
as you know, vacancy's not going to crush you where it will in a single family home. You're either making
Right.
money or you're not, you know. So we got into bigger and bigger multi, and more investors started showing up. So we realized we could put more and more money to work in small and mid-sized multi.
So is a lot
So
of the stuff in Trenton
it
area?
we got to 115 units in Trenton at one point.
Okay.
So, but we've since gotten out of there. We how did it go down? We couldn't find any deals at the time in Trenton, and I knew that Philly was close enough to my office in Trenton, and so we found a deal in Philadelphia, an 18
Across the
unit in
border
Philadelphia.
back to
Yeah, it's right there. Found an
Okay.
18 unit in Philadelphia. So we bought that 18 unit, fixed it up, renovated it. It was a good play, it was a good money maker and everything like that. And so and investors liked it. And
Yeah.
some investors that came to us said, yeah, Trenton's okay, but Trenton has a bad reputation, you know.
It does. Trenton and
I mean,
Camden, not
the
exactly
reputation is nowhere near
vacation
what it is. The city deserves some of that reputation because
Right,
it
but
can't
not
seem to
all
get
of
out
it.
of its own way
Right.
as a management entity and stuff like that. But Trenton has a worse reputation than it should because it's kind of not known for many good things.
Right.
So a lot of investors that were not from the area showed up like, yeah, I want to invest with you guys. Okay, great. Here's a 4-unit in Trenton that I can buy and whatever. Yeah, not Trenton. And so we needed to get outside of Trenton to provide something to our investor base that was appealing. So for that, we went to Philly, and that pull got our head out of Trenton a bit and made us realize there's a great big wide world out there of other cities that we could invest in. And so we then went to Lancaster and then dropped into North Carolina. Eventually worked out into Kentucky.
Far away.
Yeah.
And how are you managing those projects in different places?
We used to manage everything in Trenton ourselves. We had 115 units ourselves that we managed, and we managed the 18 unit in Philly by ourselves, which you could do.
It's right here. Yeah.
Yeah, that you can do. Right. When I bought a 49 unit in Lancaster with our investors, I wanted to manage that ourselves. I wanted to open up a management office in Lancaster.
Which is how far from where you were?
2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. My wife talked me out of it. Because she saw what was going on. She saw I was putting 80% of my time into a property management company that was making me 20% of my money. Right. So she's like, she saw that if I took my hand off of the property management business, that I would probably do better for myself. And so I was like, all right, honey, I'll try it out. Yeah. So we ended up handing over management of that 49 unit building to a third party company. They did much better managing that.
Subcontracted to do the management.
Yeah, which contracted them out. And it made me realize, man, this is actually pretty cool. I could actually grow and expand. And so within just a couple of years of us handing that management to them, we 3x the size of the company with regards to units under management.
Now, do you do a lot of your own construction when you're fixing up the units? Do you GC it yourself, or you just go out and you have a group of guys you hire to do your work?
I used to, right. And a small real estate company can do that, right? So that's the difference in business, Mitch, is that like you can either be vertically integrated where you can own all that stuff, or you can, kind of have oversight of third-party companies that are doing the work for you, right? So currently we're set up where we have an asset manager that oversees the property manager, which was originally me. Now I've got somebody who does that. And so there's that. And then we have a construction manager that oversees the construction that's happening, but we don't do the work ourselves anymore. When I had the property management company in New Jersey, I had 13 employees that were out. We had a construction and a management company. So I had a partner that almost ran it into the ground. So I had to stop that construction side of it. So we'd
partners are problematic.
Yeah. I've had a few. It didn't work out.
Yeah. Not a lot of good stories there. So
man.
The reason I asked you the question is because for people listening who are looking to get into real estate, looking to get into more passive investments, you don't have to, build up. You could do it more virtual, more where you're subcontracting things out and still make money and not have 150 employees and, construction.
You got to have your finger on the pulse though.
And stuff.
The whole, like the
Yeah,
one
you
thing
have to set
Robert
up a system where
Kiyosaki
people
talked
can't steal
about.
from you, right?
The one thing Robert Kiyosaki talks about is, I mean, there's not a point you're going to get to anytime soon unless you completely make it to the I quadrant that he talks about. Like, you're not going to make it to the I quadrant anytime soon. Let's put it that way, unless you've got a ton of money to invest.
Yeah, it's not
So the whole
hands off total, right?
Yeah, the whole concept of buying rental properties and just sipping Mai Tais on the beach, like that portfolio will eventually get away from you. You know,
Right.
like you've got to have your finger on the pulse of the property manager and do site walks. They're never going to look at it the way that you do. So I believe that it's important to, you know, it just have some checks and balances with the PM, and that's done by asset management. So
if they want to do some passive real estate investing, they can do it like through one of
Mhm.
your projects.
That's I quadrant though.
Yeah.
Then you're
that's right,
investing.
exactly.
Then somebody that has ownership alongside you is doing the direct operations and putting in the sweat equity. That's what we do. Like that, as a syndicator, the syndicator is putting in mostly sweat, mostly times, a lot of risk factors, a lot of personal guarantees, a lot of being the first risk domino to fall, meaning like if there's a slip and fall at one of my properties, they're not going to sue the LP. The LP is a mile and a half behind me. You know, they're going to come after whoever's managing the property, come after us, right?
Yeah.
So
something just happened with your camera. Touch your camera. It's got blurry. Oh, there you go. That was weird. Yeah, it came back.
Yeah, don't buy a Logitech Brio.
Mine's inexpensive too. Now, where does the name DeRosa come from?
It's my wife's mother's maiden name.
Your wife's mother's maiden name.
It's her mama. My wife's mama, Frances Randazzi. That's her maiden name. She was Frances DeRosa.
And I guess you're a Marvel fan, right? Because I see
absolutely
Iron Man. I see. Is that Hulk? Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And
So
Superman?
we got
But Superman's DC.
I did not make this. I did not make this, and so we will forgive who made this. Because I know I can tell you're a comic book guy too. Because what do you got? You got one
that's
thing
Captain
does
America
not match.
there.
You got Superman.
Superman does not belong.
Does not match. Should not
that
be there.
Sesame Street thing where one of those things does not belong with the
one
others.
Of these things is
right.
Not
Exactly.
My favorite is Captain America. I'm a Captain America fan. I love all Marvel. Marvel and Star Wars could not do anything wrong by me. I will watch anything they produce and it'll be amazing according to me. But I'm a huge Marvel fan, and I'm mainly Captain America. Like I just look up to him. I kind of,
I understand.
Well, I try and I actually have a book about like the logic of Captain America, or like leadership lessons from Captain America. Great book. And I try and embody a bit of what he talks about, what he shows to be in the movies and stuff like that. So anyway,
my daughter's very much into Marvel with me. We go to all the movies. My son is, but he's 21 and in college now.
Oh, he's too cool for it.
I don't know if he's coming. No, he's into it all with his girlfriend, but he doesn't do much with me.
Yeah,
we watch all the series. You've seen all the series on Disney
all of it.
Plus. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I watched Hawkeye. It was great. Yeah. They're all great. Again, they could do no wrong by me,
Yeah.
Because I just love the whole superhero concept. And I think a lot of people
cinematic universe, that was all tied in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of it. And just a well done superhero story sucks me in, because it really talks about, like, not to get too philosophical on you, but this guy's back to my love for Captain America for all of it, because it really taps into in like, it is a story of human potential, Well,
that's the whole concept of what Stan Lee did, right?
Yeah. He's creating characters that do things we all wish we could do, Like, I wish that when I got really pissed, I would turn green and grow like twice my size and be like, raw, like with what we feel like doing. Sometimes when you're really mad, the Hulk is the emblem of who you are and you're really mad. Like, we all feel like that inside, like,
exactly. They got She-Hulk coming out,
Right. Yeah, right. That's gonna be great too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you look at every superhero, they're just an extension or an emblem of, how cool would it be if, kind of thing, if there was some dude from another planet, another dimension that shows up, he's got a cool hammer and, Thor and stuff like that. Right. You could extrapolate that to all of them, and that.
So there's lessons to be learned.
And there's a lot of lessons to be learned from them too.
So if somebody's looking to get started, advice time, right? Pointers, things you wish you did differently, that type of stuff. What would you say to somebody? Maybe they're in their 20s and they're starting to get some money together and they're thinking, I want to get into real estate. What would your advice be to them? Don't fucking do it.
Yeah, right. Throw it in Bitcoin, man. Yeah,
run.
right. Yeah, just go all in on Bitcoin. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Exactly right.
You can
Crypto
completely
curve,
control
all
that, and that's completely predictable on what it's going to
Right.
do tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
But anyway, no, my advice to someone who wants to get involved in real estate is a few things, and I will talk to my former self, to the 25-year-old Matt Faircloth, right?
Okay.
So I would tell them to get involved, to like, get in, but get in, like, pick a lane and stay in it. This is not what I did. I, like, when I first got started, I was tried on, as I said, the story about the office building, right? If I had Mitch had just focused on residential housing as my lane and say, okay, I'm going to pick a division of real estate and stick with it for the next 5 years and just try and expand and become the best in that division that I can, I would have never bought an office building when I owned a bunch of single family homes, right? I would just stuck with residential real estate.
Didn't fit your model, so to speak.
No, it was an outlier, and I paid that, and I paid dearly for buying that outlier. It could have been great, and it was great in a lot of ways, and helped me build my brand. And I did a lot of meetups there, and I'm grateful for having it. And I think that in a lot of ways, this is the bottom line, Mitch. I'll get back to your question in a second, but the funny thing is, because I'm the always the optimist.
Yeah.
I believe a lot of things in life, if you give them enough time, they work their way out. Right. And everything, if you extrapolate life from enough macroscopic view, you can see life works out to perfection, even with COVID and with all the bad things, that are happening now, or social unrest or whatever it is. If you look at it from a macroscopic view all the way out here, you can see that things worked out for the best in macroscopic view. And in my life, it did. In owning that office building, it's working its way out. That building served me in a lot of different ways in that. But if I had stayed focused, I would have grown a lot faster. So I would say pick a industry and stay focused of real estate, and learn how to build a team as fast as you can, and put your own money to work as well. Maybe learn how to raise some capital too. There is a book I'd recommend called Raising Private Capital.
There you go. Right over your left shoulder. Yep. Now, and I guess your wife's in the business too, right? Because before we started, you're like, well, I'm in the office. I got to change the logo. So you took your wife's logo, and I saw she had some different logos and things that's going on.
My wife's got
do this all together though.
We do. So she's like, we're kind of on the board of each other's companies, right? But we both have our own ventures. My wife and I are both alphas, and so we kind of need our own fiefdoms, right? We tried that, working together arm in arm, and we love each other and we do a lot of things together. But we both need to kind of be the visionary.
Does that mean you guys buy your own separate properties? No.
I run the active division of our company. I run the part of our company that actually goes out and buys the sticks and bricks. Okay. She runs her own company that is a education and awareness and community-based company called the Real Estate Invest Her. So my wife has always been an advocate for women's rights and for women's education and for advancing women in our society, right? Because women have not gotten the fair shake. I don't care who you tell me or whatever, not just fair wages or whatever, but women get this shit into the stick in so many different ways in our society. And she is down to turn that around, right? Yeah. So she wants to build wealth for women.
Educating women who want to invest in the real estate business.
Yeah. Educating women about real estate investing is a good place to start for them to go. And for women that want to get into real estate, she is there to provide resources and provide knowledge and masterminds and communities for them to learn how to advance themselves in the real estate space. And her company's, and she's also has a publishing arm. She's published a book, but her company's called the Real Estate Invest Her. And she has her main vehicle is a podcast. And that podcast is published by Bigger Pockets.
Yeah, because your bio said you were a regular guest on Bigger Pockets. Well,
so am I. That's kind of a joint relationship her and I have. They published my book and they published her podcast. So there's a lot of overlap. I mean, we're raising for a large deal right now to buy 670 apartment units. Her company, the Invest Her, is supporting us in bringing out about investor awareness for that.
Now, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn about deals that you have? Read your book, I guess. Raising Private Capital is on Amazon, right? Mm-hmm.
You can get it on Bigger Pockets. You're better off buying it on Bigger Pockets because they give you a
biggerpockets.com.
Yeah. Well, they can do all these things.
We'll put it in the show
Um,
notes.
they can hear about deals that I go to, the deals
Okay.
we're involved in. They can pick up a copy of my book. They
All
can
at biggerpockets.com.
No, my Instagram, the Matt
Okay.
Faircloth, the Matt Faircloth, on Instagram. And in my Instagram bio, there is a link, and in there's all kinds of coolness we have going on. There's great stuff about me. There's you can pick up a copy of my book from Bigger Pockets. You can check out investment deals we have if you're looking for passive and mostly for accredited investor kind of stuff. You can look there too.
Okay. Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough. I know it took a while for us to get in touch with each other, but this is awesome, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the conversation.